Very good morning to you. So tell me a little bit more about this plan for the introduction of a britcard, a digital ID card. I mean, it was a policy that the former Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, ruled out just last July. So what's changed?
Well, first of all, it's not a brick card. That would obviously raise all sorts of issues across the whole of the UK, and so we're calling it what it is, which is digital ID. And the idea is that we've got a country that has for a long time been living in a digital era but operating in an analog way. We've been looking over the last year at lots of different options and different countries and the ways that they have rolled out digital ID, including Estonia. And the major benefit of digital ID, of course, is that it makes it far easier for employers to check whether somebody has the right to work here. So for people who come here and want to work, it will be compulsory to show it. For all other UK citizens, it will be compulsory to have it, but not to show it. People will be able to choose whether they use it or not. But we think for a lot of people, you know, me included, who spend a lot of time digging out utility bills and national insurance numbers and copies of passports to prove verification in lots of different ways, that this will have a big benefit as well.
So this is, at the moment, the focus is on eligibility, proving eligibility for working in this country. But is there a plan to expand its use in future so that people need it for access for public services?
So the plan is to ensure that everybody has it, but you can choose whether you use it. So there'll be a variety of ways in which you could prove your eligibility for services in a way that you already do now, using paper documents and others. But we want to make sure that every UK citizen has access to it so that they can use it. We think it will be safer and more secure. The countries like Estonia, for example, have an encryption system, which means that only the information that needs to be shared with particular services is shared. We think it will empower most people to be able to not just access services, but also in the same way that the NHS app enables us now to access our own medical records, to be able to make online appointments. We think it will enable far more people to be able to navigate the online world much more seamlessly.
You talk about safety and security, but the government doesn't have a great track record when rolling out big tech projects. I mean, you just have to look at the problems with the Windrush system, the NHS's efforts as well to go digital and get an IT system online. And also, in recent days and months, we've seen a number of stories about cyber attacks as well that have brought companies to their knees, the likes of Jaguar Land Rover, M&S. Today, we're talking about a children's nursery as well. So what guarantees are there that people's information is safe?
Well, I think you're right to say that we've already got problems with cyber security that we've been on the front foot about over the last year. And we're about to bring forward new legislation that will strengthen our cyber security laws and help protect companies like Jaguar Land Rover, M&S and others from the sort of attacks that we've seen, which have not just had a devastating effect on their own businesses, but on supply chains and workers across the UK as well. The two things can be done simultaneously, and we've been looking at lots of countries around the world, the way that they've been able to tighten up their laws and protections around cybersecurity and to be able to roll out digital ID. It's not just Estonia, it's India, Australia and others. Offline ID also carries huge risks. We've seen a rise in the amount of fraud and people's identities being stolen and cloned, people losing identity documents and then finding that somebody has taken their identity and accessed services and other things. So we think that as we roll this out, and we're confident that we can roll it out by the end of this Parliament, we will be able to keep people's data more secure as a consequence of these reforms, not less.
A lot of Labour MPs are pretty uncomfortable about it. I've seen it described as authoritarian nonsense and a dystopian mess. Are you not concerned about civil liberties here?
Of course, it's an important debate that we've been having in this country for several decades. The last Labour government floated the idea of not digital ID but identity cards, and there was a very live debate around that, and we've debated it ever since. It's important, of course, that we protect people's civil liberties, and we have got no intention of pursuing a dystopian mess. But I do think for most people this is a fairly common sense and practical measure. And like I said, although all UK citizens will have a digital ID, it will not be mandatory for people to use it. It'll be entirely their choice. And we will be consulting over the coming months to make sure that it's widely accessible and available. There are particular groups: older people, homeless people, people with disabilities, and we want to make sure that this is inclusive enough to be able to ensure that they can access and use it in the same way as everybody else.
So the focus at the moment is illegal working, and the Prime Minister has said the card's going to make it tougher for people to be able to do that, presumably also trying to tackle one of these so-called pull factors that make people want to make illegal crossings to the UK. Is there any evidence that ID cards would actually act as a disincentive to that kind of journey, given that there are ID cards in many other European countries and it doesn't seem to affect migration?
Well, it will make it much easier for employers to be able to check and to know that the information that they're seeing is correct and hasn't been falsified. So I think it's an incredibly welcome step forward for a lot of employers who want to make sure that they're complying with the law. And of course, those who don't comply with the law already face penalties, which they'll continue to face. But we're not pretending for one moment that there is one silver bullet to solving the migration crisis that we inherited from the last government. The returns agreement with France disrupts the smuggler gangs' business model. It means that people who get on those boats know that they will and can be returned to France in order to have their claims processed. The digital ID makes it much harder for people to work in the illegal economy. The asylum claim processing measures that we've put in place has doubled the rate of applications that are being processed, so that people will know that when they come to the UK, their application will be processed swiftly, and if they can't stay here in the UK, then they will be returned much more quickly. Taken together, all of those measures, we're confident, will make a real dent in the crisis that we inherited. But we're not going to pretend, like the last government did, that there is one measure that is going to solve this problem overnight.
Kemi Badenoch says this is just a distraction from your pre-conference woes, and Andy Burnham apparently making a pitch for the leadership. She got a point?
I think Kemi Badenoch has got enough of her own problems, and I think the leadership contest she ought to be worried about are in her own party. I'm an MP here in Greater Manchester, and I'm really proud to work with a mayor and a Prime Minister who together have been able to deliver the Hillsborough Law, which many of my constituents and many people across this country have been campaigning for far too long. That's the sort of example of what we can do with really great representatives at local, regional and national level, working together, relentlessly focused on the country and not obsessing about what's going on in any political party, unlike the Conservatives.
Well, Keir Starmer is attacking reform today in newspaper articles and in a speech later. And looking at the latest polls, you can see why. A new YouGov MRP polling projection, which looks seat by seat at each constituency, is suggesting today that an election, if it were to be held today, would see a hung parliament with Reform UK winning 311 of the 650 seats. Labour would lose around 2/3 of their existing seats. And your constituency shows that you would lose your seat if this projection was correct. What do you make of that? And especially given that it's not much more than a year since your party won a large majority. What's gone wrong?
Well, look, I haven't seen the poll, and I can honestly say to you that every day since we won that general election, with a country that was crying out for change and with so many problems, like the Prime Minister, I've got out of bed every day, relentlessly focused on how we solve those problems for people. I think if you poll whether people want a government that is going to change the country, is going to fix the many problems that there are, going to get NHS waiting lists down, going to sort out public transport, going to to build housing in this country so that people have a safe and secure home and opportunities for their kids. I think that's what people really want, and that's what we're focused on delivering. I'm confident that we'll do it. It was only 6 years ago that Keir Starmer became leader of a party that had suffered its worst election defeat in the polls in 100 years. People said that we wouldn't have a hope of forming the next government. We defied expectations. We turned our party around. We won a mandate last year to turn our country around, and that's what we intend to do.